Good morning, everybody. It's half past ridiculous, and we're seeking a sentiomentium. Last week, why do I get really bad BTV shows coming back in my head when I say that? Last week, we gave everybody some homework, and the homework was, what would you do if resources were not an issue? And it was more of a mental exercise than anything, but we still want to hear, you know, the processes that you went through, because the issue here, the point of bringing this up isn't to find out what people would do. It's to explore the processes you would go through to discover what you would like to do, because very few people have had the opportunity to do what they want. They do what they think they can make money at. They do what they think will survive long term. I mean, I did that myself, and I got into tool and die making because at the time they said that tool and die making is going to be widespread. It's going to be required forever. There's going to be 7 jobs for every tool maker. You'll never be out of work. And 5 years later, the whole system collapsed, and I was out of work. So where would you go with this? And this ties also into what we were talking about a little bit last week about belief systems, and how your belief system is going to color this. Carl brought up before the show started that he has a lady friend who had a dream, and she pursued the dream, and now she's building it. And we were trying to get her on today, but she's really busy. So we'll get her on next couple of shows. But I don't know. We don't have much of an audience. I guess the homework was scared everybody. So we only got...
Well, there's still time for them to come in. Nobody comes in early anyway.
That's true. That's true. But for the people that are here, did you spend any time over the week thinking about, you know, what would drive you to want to get up every morning to not, I mean, yeah, okay, I got to kind of qualify this a little bit. I'm not talking about something you can do every hour of every day, 24/7, 7 days a week, and never get bored of it. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the passion, the drive to want to keep doing it. You see that with artists. You see that with musicians. You see that, you know, pretty much any of the arts. These people, they love going to work. They love doing what they're doing, and they don't do it 24/7 all the time, constantly. But it's something they always go back to. It's something they always look forward to. And I'd really like to explore this a little bit, especially from the point of view of how you got there. Because we need to give folks tools. I mean, not everybody, certainly. But we do need to give a number of folks tools as to what they can do to discover this. Excuse me. And I think that's going to be one of the most difficult things of this transition is trying to find where your passions are, because a lot of people, they've lived in the beat down system so long that they just don't know. They've never had the opportunity to explore different things. They have no idea. They're stuck in a rut. You know, I'm an insurance salesman and that's what I do, even though he hates it. And they don't look anywhere else. So I like to explore ways of getting them tools so they can look elsewhere. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, it's a driving passion that if you don't have it, you know, the concepts of living a life that is just is born in passion and in desire and in love, because technically that's kind of the ultimate encompassing emotion, let's say, for all of this, something that you actually love to do. Very few people even know, even, I mean, I've been there. You know, you have no real idea about what you're going to do in your life, because right now all you're doing is working to keep paying the bills, and that's all everybody is really used to doing. So, you know, I get exactly where it is that you're coming from, and I suppose, you know, people listening, yeah, it's the same thing. I know. We have Mark back on again, and I know he has a passion that he's trying to fulfill, and unfortunately he was in a great big battle to achieve it. But his passion is still there. His desire to fulfill his dream is still there. So I'm sure Mark knows exactly what it is that we're talking about, and if money and resources, you know, weren't an issue, I guess he would just carry on doing what he's doing right now. He wouldn't do anything different. Of course, the insurance salesman out there, or whoever it is that's doing some menial, crappy job that they really don't like, they are the ones that you have to ask the question, okay, what would I really be doing for the rest of my life? Because everybody says, oh, well, I would travel. Well, do you want to do that for the rest of your life? At some point, you know, the love of something must take precedent in your life, must become important, and other people potentially become important so that you can share it. Because another mindset, as far as I'm concerned, is you can't or shouldn't be doing this on your own. You should really be finding somebody to share your passion with, you know, because that is the greatest sensation, the greatest feeling that you could ever have. So yeah, I mean, if anybody has something else to say, yeah, by all means, come in and join in. Let's hear what you guys have got to say.
Yeah. And I mean, we just look at TV. We've got tons and tons of examples. Yes, they are made-up characters, but they do reflect a significant portion of the actual population out there. The Al Bundys, the Archie Bunkers, they're all there, and they do exist. And there are people out there who they don't even know what questions to ask. And
yeah.
You know, I've discovered this just talking to some people about this, sort of just kind of on the sidelines. I recognize that they've never thought about it. They've never had it within their belief systems that this is even a possibility. So they've never even looked at it. They've never asked the questions, you know, what do I love to do? And you get somebody like the Al Bundy who, you know, he's a shoe salesman because that's all he can get. You ask him that question and he'll just stare at you. They don't know. They don't have the tools or, in a lot of cases, even the experience to say, well, I would like to explore this. And I think for most of us, it's going to be an exploration. You know, it's like the kid. One day he wants to be a fireman. The next week he wants to be an astronaut. The third week after that he wants to be a botanist. He's exploring possibilities. He's exploring things. And we kind of need to get back into that because of the compartmentalization of vocation, of teaching, of schooling. The kids don't get the exposure to these different aspects, these different fields that they could pursue, and then wind up as adults without any sort of background on it. I don't know if I'm really fortunate or if it caused me more problems, but I had the opportunity to explore a number of things when I was younger because basically I was essentially left alone. And, you know, I got curious about airplanes one day, so I went to my father and I asked him if he could explain how airplanes worked, and he pointed me to a book. And that set me off. At that point, I realized anything I want to know, it's there. I just got to go get it. And I started exploring all kinds of different things. I looked at aeronautics, I looked at electronics, mechanical design, a whole bunch of different fields, and learned a lot of things. And I brought up on another discussion several days ago that one of my favorite things to do when I was a kid, especially when it was raining or 30 below outside, because I lived in southern Alberta, was just go grab an encyclopedia and just sit down and read an encyclopedia. So I was exposed to a whole bunch of different things when I was younger, and I was, I think, fortunate enough to be able to narrow that down without even realizing I was doing it. Now, later on, I got slapped with these limits, with the system of lack. And when I started getting into manufacturing, when I started getting into the nuts and bolts of tool and die making, I started sitting at a sander, sanding little brass blocks for 8 hours a day, which I could do it. I mean, I have the ability to just turn everything off and just be a robot for a while. So it wasn't something that really drove me nuts, but I wasn't really looking forward to it. What drove me at that point was the possibility that I could move past that. And over time I did. And when I started working and dealing with tool and die, get a drawing, get a big pile of metal and some cutters and a couple of machines, and you just start shaping things and putting it all together. And that's where I learned that I'm a maker, that I love building stuff. And that took, well, I was about 26, I guess, when I actually figured that out. So even though I started when I was 7, it took, another, 11 years or 21 years to come up with it. And so I don't expect anybody to wake up in the morning and go, I know what I want to do, without that exploration. But again, like I said earlier, you still need to know the questions to ask. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, on that subject then, John, you brought up something that's quite interesting, because you and I and a number of people I know have spoken frequently on when our awakening actually began, as a human soul. And pretty much most of the people I'm speaking to, they can pin their desires in the early stages, 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, when they start delving into all sorts of different subjects and reading things that, it's not Sesame Street and it's not, the ABC 1, 2, 3 book. It's something pretty advanced. I mean, I was reading the Encyclopedia Britannica at 8 years old myself. I was delving into geology, astronomy. Actually, UFOs came when I was about 10, but I was looking at Egyptology and the history and pyramid power. All of this stuff was going on, in the period of 8, 9, 10 years old. And lots of other people I've spoken to, yourself obviously included, reading different material, started at that same age. We've had a very early desire to carry out what our creative soul wants to do. Unfortunately, the system has impinged on that, because as you mentioned, the system itself has stopped us. It's created lack. It's created the necessity for us to have to work at whatever menial job is available to us, dependent on our desire and our abilities and training and whatever opportunities that might have come our way. Typically what happens at that point, the system keeps control of you, and all of your desires get quashed until you get to a point where the desires take over again. and maybe the money isn't quite such an important thing, or you've made enough money that it gives you the freedom to exercise your creative desires and go back to what it was that you were feeling in your youth.
Yeah,
you know, that happy.
I
Sorry,
don't.
go on.
Yeah, I don't think the story is really that different for most people. Yeah, when they were younger, when they had the freedom, nobody was telling them what to do. They were exploring different things. Now, it may not have been an encyclopedia. It may have been actual hands-on. Go out and take a tree apart and dig around in the rocks but you were exploring at that point. And then over the next 10, 15 years, external belief systems were dropped on your head and things changed. And I mean, this is going to come down to belief systems. What you believe you can do, what you believe you can't do. Are they valid? Can they be changed? Do you want them to be changed? So when we're looking at the exploration, we also have to look at the inner exploration as well. In that, you know, where was I when I was 8? Where was I when I was 10? What was driving me at that point? And is that still a valid drive? Is that still something that I want to pursue? Now, astronomy, Egyptology, geology, yeah, awesome stuff. I mean, I kind of stuck my fingers in those pies as well. And fascinating stuff, absolutely fascinating stuff. But it's, you know, astronomy, I'd love to have a telescope. I'd love to look around and you know, check things out. And I've seen with my own eyes the rings of Saturn. I've seen with my own eyes Mars through telescopes. It was fascinating. It was awesome at the time, but it kind of faded and okay, I saw it. Now what's next, right? We looked at stars, we looked at star clusters, and okay, there's 2,000 little white dots in a black background. Awesome. Didn't really drive me. So although it's fascinating, it's something I do like to do. It's not something I want to pursue in any big way. Now, Jenny brings up she's a nurse and would keep working with people, but would definitely change the environment. Most definitely. Now, if you think that environment that you're working in currently, or that you're I'm going to use the word vocation because it makes sense in this sense. If the environment where your vocation is centered is immutable, then that's going to color your decisions. If you could do it, again, like I asked at the very beginning, what would you do if resources were not at issue? If you could do what you're doing now in a different environment, would that change the picture? Would that make it so that you love to do what you want to do? And, we need to pursue all of these things and, no limits. I mean, this has come up a number of times in a number of different ways, and people don't seem to realize or grasp the depth of that statement. We are entering an era where there will be no limits. And I mean, just the concept of that, when you're just scratching the surface of that, boggles the mind. So I really don't expect anybody to get this in a big way right off the bat. Certainly some will. Most of us, we're going to explore for years before we find this is what I want to do. This is where I shine. This is what drives me. And that's awesome because we need that exploration. So again, I'm going to put it, we got the audience just grew a little bit. A bunch of people aren't here, so I'm going to ask the question again. What could you do? What would you pursue if resources were not an issue? If you could do anything you wanted, what would make you want to get up in the morning every morning and go do this? And how did you get there? That's the big question, is how did you find it? How did you discover? What kind of a process did you go through?
And we're not actually talking about what job would you do. This is not about the current system. This is this is if the system of want that we exist under right now just didn't exist anymore. You know, if you needed to go and get food, you could just go down to the local store or local wherever, pick it up, leave, you're done. You know, think of the Star Trek society, you know, even punching a code in a replicator and there it is.
Yep.
Maybe you know, it's beyond most people's contemplation, but we're going there because the system that we currently have is failing. So no matter what, things are definitely going to change, but we're looking that it's going to change to the level of a complete breakdown of what we currently have, and that the replacement, it can't be the same again. It would have to be something different, to the extent that we can do anything that we want now. This is not a case of, well, we have to think about what job we need to do for the rest of our lives. This is about what exactly do we want to do for the rest of our lives, period, in anything. Would we even stick to one thing? We have so many subjects that we really like, that we would just try them all one by one and maybe go back to something a little later on. There's so many different ideas and so many different concepts, and it's all about creativity. It's all about joy. It's all about love. It's all about the positive emotion. You know, I mean, if you're going down there and you want to blow it up, sorry, you're in the wrong place. This is all about you know, the positive future, and as Jenny mentioned there, build the new tribe. We're already doing that, despite the system that's in place. The UU room itself, this server, RTS server, lots of others that have been created, they're all, you know, the tribes, the little mini tribes of people that we want to associate with. And maybe that's a part of what we spend the rest of our lives doing. As I've mentioned before, this isn't necessarily also about individual joy and individual love, individual creativity and what we want to do as a single entity. This is about potentially coming together with lots of other people. You can call them your soulmates, your soul tribe, the family that you want, not the family you were born to, and create something as a group and enjoy, even more so because you're in that group environment, as opposed to just doing something by yourself. And by yourself might well be great and wonderful, but I believe that we as human beings have a desire to want to share, and if we have a passion that somebody else also shares, then it's a passion doubled. So, you know, is that something that people kind of gel with and resonate with too?
Most definitely, Carl. And Brianna, you asked the question, is this about typing or what we wish for, or is it a live discussion? This is a live discussion. Come on out. You're more than welcome to share your views. And because this is, we're getting to the point where we need to share. We need to share our talents. We need to share our views, our perspectives, because the broader the perspective, the more tools everyone has to work with, the easier it's going to be for everyone to get where they want to be. So, Brianna, you're welcome to come out and share a little bit. I know it says in here. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, can you hear me okay? Because sometimes my laptop is kinky.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay, it's a little bit easier for me in the sense that, not unlike you, actually, I have been living out of the system as much as possible. With, you know, like I don't have a driver's license, I don't have a passport, so I cannot travel if I want to, which is completely stupid. But the good part for me in this if everything changed and there would be no limits, I know what I really yearn for, and that would not change. What I truly deeply yearn for is creating community, and I know that word is coming out again and again on all here in the shows with Danny, but it's always been on my mind. It's always been something deep inside that I'd like to do.
Well, I don't.
You know, go.
Okay. I don't want to belittle it because it's awesome. But from my perspective, that is a very finite thing. We only need that for 5 or 10 years. What would you do after that?
I don't have, I know a lot of people that understand that. Said, because I remember a few shows ago when the whole thing was new with the Heather thing, and everybody was kind of telling out their dreams, and there was a lot of I want to travel, which is, yeah, of course, but I'm already beyond that. I would move from where I am, but I want to anyway. I think I know where I want to be. That's personal. It always starts with a personal wish. It always starts with your personal view on how or what would make you happy.
Well, this whole thing is personal, Brianna. Don't get stuck in the belief system that it has to be for everybody, that you have to work for the community, that you have to do everything that you do so that somebody else benefits. Well, okay,
I'm not. Yeah. No, I hear you, and you're right. No, I don't want to work. I want this to be as effortless as possible. My dream is not to be working the fields from morning to night, hand in dirt, and just collapse in the evening from pure fatigue because it's hard. And no. Getting together with a few people. We are all like-minded because we are here. Carl, here later on tonight listening to Danny, but some of us are, let's say, even more like-minded, maybe. I don't want to build like this big, community thing. It's just about building my personal heaven, H-A, sometimes I have an accent, I'm sorry.
Haven, I believe is the word.
Thank you, haven. So it is, of course, personal. I want my haven. My haven looks like a place where there is water aplenty. The weather is only maximum 3 seasons. There is no winter. Tons of bougainvilleas growing. Because I am into that. Not
Brianna, don't you think that there are people out there that, of course, you personally just mentioned you don't want to spend all day with your hands in the dirt, but I'm sure there are people out there that really do, and they'll enjoy doing that. I think forgive me if I'm presuming here, Brianna, but I get the feeling that you want to spend your time with the people that you resonate with. The people that you can sit down and you can spend time with, and absolutely in the purest joy and love and feeling, just bathe in whatever it is that you are talking about, whatever it is that you're all doing, that brings you the most joy.
Exactly.
And to be able to do that for, the rest of your life would be probably the purest feeling that you could ever have, to be able to be surrounded by these types of people. Because if you're like me, I feel the same way. But I can't do small talk. I can't do bots. I can't do stupid people. I'm sorry. I just don't do it.
Yeah, no. We say these things. We're between, if we can't say these things the way we feel about these things among each other, then where the fuck can we say them? Yes, I agree, you're right.
Yeah, and the fact that we can say them and not get upset and bent out of shape is another aspect of our rising from the lower levels, the negative levels, the lower frequencies, whatever term you want to use. It's an indication of how far we've traveled, how far we've come, because we're able to do this. I mean, we see it all the time in some of the other, the groups. Some people come in and there's a lower vibration, there's a lower level, there's a fear, all the negative stuff. Just pick a negative emotion and it's there. We have proven several times that even when people come in with those kind of an emotion, we are able to kind of transcend it and just go beyond it, ignore it, or do something to try and fend off whatever that negative emotion actually is, and how it's affecting them when they come in with it, and how it starts to affect other people. And the moderator kind of does the same thing, jumps in, calms something down. Right. Before, it was just a certain way of doing things. Now there's a feeling behind it. Now there is an actual state of being, a state of mind. And when we come together like that, it's the best thing that I've felt for years. So me coming into the UU room, when I asked Danny to put me in, because I really didn't want to be on Facebook, and that's why I hadn't been in earlier. But I got to the point where I had that desire to search out my light tribe, let's say. Yep. I was getting into a bad state, as you may well remember, Brianna, when I spoke on the One People's Roundtable show.
Yeah, and I remember you just about being ready to up and leave.
Yeah.
And it's not a good, it's a very hard moment.
Yeah. But having said that, being in the UU room now and making connections with, lots of different people who I can definitely say I can describe as my light tribe, who I can describe as being on my level, let's say. And I'm not being, I don't want to be big-headed about that, so to speak, but, there's a certain level that we seem to be operating at that is well beyond what other people seem to be operating at. And we just seem to gel. We resonate. Yep. Again, whatever word you want to use, but that's what's happening. And we're finding these groups, and we're establishing something that I don't think does already exist, or if it does, then it's in such small supply and in so many small places that it's just untenable for us to comprehend. The fact that it is now becoming more prevalent, I think this is the reason why we're doing these shows, because there has to be a change in the state of mind, in the state of being. And as you said, to speak with people, we have to be truthful, we have to be honest, we have to be loving of ourselves, and accepting of what's. And I'm a big one for that one, because unfortunately I don't accept or haven't accepted compliments very well. I have an understanding that I very knowledgeable on a lot of things, very helpful in a lot of things that I can do, and people have they have their own image of what kind of person that I actually am, based on the knowledge that I give to people, the information, the emotion, all of these things that come across in the unpersonal world of, Messenger or Discord or other forums. But that stuff does come across, and people have and do compliment me on it. But I am having to learn to accept those compliments and accept that that's really who I am. Other people see it and they are complimenting me for doing that. You know, so it's not just me that happens to. Excuse me. There are lots of people that occurs to, and I think it's a type of person that just they exist that way. You know, you're humble. That's about the best thing that the best word I could use. You're just basically humble. But there is a definite change that has to take place. And we have to accept that there are other people like us, and we have to grab hold of those people and hang on. You know, because there might not be 7 billion people in this world.
This is what I wanted to chime in just 1 second on this, because, okay, my dream, that was simple. You know, no, it's not a community about we got to grow shit and do this and do that. This will happen, like you said. There will be people that, you know, before I imagined my house, to make it short, before thinking of how I would like my house to look like, I'm actually seeing how the place around my house looks like. A big fire pit, a place for us to get us, whomever will want to join, to gather around the fire and talk and feel good. I see those things before I see my interior, which for a woman, usually, you know, we're more into like, I don't know, decoration. I don't give a damn. I have my color sets. Yeah, I like this color and that color. I want this. I don't like tiny house. That's it. You know, that's enough for me. I know what I want. I want the communing place. Because the word community means a lot. I am looking to make a communing place, and there will be a lot of those. A lot of those. And when you have the freedom to travel without the hassle and the worry and the authorities and the crap, life, you can see it in a different way, because you're not stuck to a place. You can actually go away from that place for a while, visit wherever that will be. Or, you know, John's place, wherever he'll decide to plant his roots, or not plant his roots, or meet him on the road somewhere. And finally pet that tiny dog of his. Yeah. I love that video. What I do wanted to say, and it's very specific about right now, because I see it in myself. I see it in a lot of people also. It's moments, they come and they go. We all feel, there's so much going on, it can get overwhelming. Moments where we all feel, that word, I know, but that's what it is. We all feel a little needy. And if we can't be ourselves, acknowledging that amongst ourselves, like we are here now, then we're doing it wrong. And I know we're not doing it wrong.
Well, the human condition was never intended to be alone. Yes, there are those who thrive on solitude. I'm one of them. But yeah, every once in a while, I like to go out and, you know, go down and have dinner at the bar or go to a festival or something and just be around people. And I don't seek it all the time. But it's nice to have. So yeah, we're wired to have people around us, certainly. And
when we find it.
And you know, your concept of building a community, building a haven, place with like minds, totally awesome. Love it. But it's not quite what I'm talking about. Because think about it. Okay, you've got your haven, you've got your people with like minds. What are you going to do? You're just going to go out and sit in a circle every day and stare at each other? I mean, where would you put your energies? Where would, you know, if resources were not an issue, where would you put your energies? Where would your passions flow? And how did you get there to figure that out? That's the big question.
I got there figuring that out by first figuring out what I really do not like, and trying to figure out not only what I do not like, but the things I would never compromise for this, and that. I want to live. I love music. One thing, I make music. I actually stopped making music because it's important. Because unlike you, who plays the guitar, and you were almost going to sell that guitar, I remember that. To music, I felt the hurt. I play piano, or it can be a synthetic. I can't pronounce that fucking thing. Fuck! Would you help me?
I think there are so many, Brianna. I think there are so many things that people could potentially do with their lives, but what is it that they're actually going to do? Crystal has mentioned helping other people. Yeah, that's. But helping them what? Helping them with what? I mean, we're supposed to help empower them to do something better.
In the beginning, I could see. Let's say it actually happens. There's a moment when things we're free. That's it. We're free. There will be people to help, because some people will be disoriented by that freedom. I see that. Yeah. So yes, there will be a period, but that's a finite thing. A period of time wherein it will unfold until those people are completely free themselves in their minds, and then there will be no more need for helping people, which is great.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was mentioning about the change of thought, the thinking process that people go through. You see, we go through a certain process ourselves, where, you know, circumstances, where events that take place around us have a limited effect, let's say, on how we interact with it, how we react to it, and so on. You know, do we need the help that people are offering? I would say no. If you want to use that word that was bandied around for a while, I believe we definitely are the way showers. We are at a level of thinking and experiencing and feeling that is our future. We're already there and gaining more and more day by day. So yes, we can help these people out who are in that negative space. And I know you mentioned before about the communities and such. Existing within a community, a small community of people, that like-minded people, is absolutely the one of the main things that I would love to do. The problem, and John loves his solitude. I love my solitude too.
Oh yeah, being in
sometimes mine's enforced a lot of the time because I'm an empath. So if I go out into the public amongst those negative feeling people out there, I'm just turned into a basket case.
Carl,
I have to move.
That's why people love solitude.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons.
And that's it.
John withdrew. I'm withdrawing. I withdrew years ago. I live in the middle of a fucking city, downtown. Although it's Europe, but still. I withdrew. If I go out to a place where there's many people at the same time, a crowded street, it does not make me feel good most of the time because I feel their energies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I withdrew. So that's the one thing. But to go back on helping people in a world where there is no lack, there's no need for help. Yes, in the beginning.
Yeah, and that was the point I was trying to make. What is it that we help them with?
And we'll want to sometimes, again, community is not the right word because it sounds, you know, it's not the hippie community of the 70s where everybody's on top of fucking everybody. And I need my privacy. No matter, even if I'm with like-minded people, I still enjoy my privacy. And I would never come banging on your door and barging in or without you, making the sign that you would like to, let's sit down and talk, or let's get some food going. I see some other people will probably be on the road all the time. Will probably have a mobile type RV type of or whatever, and be on the road all the time, going from place to place, which I think is great. It's amazing.
I think I'd like to do that myself.
And I'd like to do that, but for a while. I know I will at some point. I like to have my roots somewhere. And
and I agree with you, but there's another question. Where do we set our roots? Because let's face it, I came from England. I've traveled to a few countries in Europe. I moved to Canada. I visited the States. I've visited some of the Caribbean islands, but I've, maybe 8, 9 countries. How many are there? 192, 206. I can't even remember. How many countries have I not been to? Where do I then set my roots? And does everybody else have that same question? Are they going to stay where they were born, or are they going to decide, well, I'm going to travel the world and find out where it is that I actually do want to live for the rest of my life, because it might not be, and probably won't be, where I am right now.
For me,
so there's another question.
It definitely not is where I am right now, and I'm not even where I was born. So anyway,
yeah,
I have an idea of where I want to be. So I have an idea which is related to some parameters that make me happy. One of them being the total lack of winter.
I think I think there are some. Crystal is. I know Crystal loves the snow. I mean, she lives in an area that is gets lots of it. Winter is pretty long, and she loves it. So for her ideal place is going to be where there's going to be snow for some of the time.
Right.
Is it where she is right now? I don't know.
Well, snow for me is something I would love to see from time to time, maybe every couple of years as a tourist. I'll come to visit whoever, or not visit anybody, just go up a place where there's snow. When we're not, it's very hard to get your thinking, such freedom, such end of lack, that you are not constricted by it.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, somewhere, to still think as in, I do want to plant my roots somewhere, because I like nature, I like a certain type of environment, and I want to have a certain type of house in a certain type of environment. That being said, I will move around. I will take road trips, because I love road trips.
And I think that could be part of what we love as well. The ability to travel. Let's face it, if we have no borders, which I'm hoping happens sooner than later, we can go anywhere that we want. And why shouldn't we?
Lack is not a problem. Moreover, if lack is not a problem, and when lack is not a problem, it's not about because you have roots somewhere, that ties you to those roots. No, we're tied to wherever we are right now because of the fucking lack system. Because it's complicated. Because there are fucking bills to pay. Or, I don't know, pets that you can't leave behind if you have several. Or, it's hard to get out of that thinking that, no, if you're not tied down by these things anymore, the total freedom is almost hard to grasp as a concept. I know it's hard to go all the way to thinking what it means, total freedom. I get it, but I don't see having roots somewhere as being a thing that would tie me down. I could up and go anytime because there's no lack. No more lack.
Well, in essence, it wouldn't be roots as such then, would it? Because that would imply more permanency.
Well, not necessarily, Carl. Take a lesson from the sea anemone. These are they're a hybrid creature. They're partly plant, partly animal. They have roots, but if they don't like where they're at, they'll get up and move.
There you go. What you call those?
Sea anemone.
Oh God! Can somebody type this for me? I want to call myself that now. No, really, I'm serious. Can somebody type this for me because I want to get that word right, because this is going to be my last name from now on.
I have to think how I spell that.
Anemone.
Yeah, that's what.
No, it's cucumber, is
go.
it?
That's what
anemone. Oh, anemone de mer in French. Yeah.
Anemone. Okay.
Anemone. I know what.
Whether that's the exact spelling, I'm not sure, but
it's French.
yeah,
it is.
it's close enough.
Yeah. Sea anemone. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Thank you, John.
And
I am Brianna C.
With the there we go. There's a whole bunch of them.
Thanks, Clive.
Yeah, thanks, Clive. The thing that came to mind while you guys were discussing this is we are the trainers. Not to put us on a pedestal because it's a huge job. It's a tremendous responsibility. But we are the frontline troops. We are the people who are discovering this stuff first, that exploring this stuff first. And we need to be able to be clear enough with our, belief systems, processes, procedures, what we want to be able to help others through the coming process that we're going to be facing here shortly. So, again, I'm going back to you, Brianna, just because you brought up a very important point, and you may not even have realized you've done it. In that, all you're thinking of is your situation, where you wake up in the morning, not what you do every day after you wake up in the morning, and not that it's not important. Like certainly where you live is awesome. I'd like to live in a place where I can walk out my front door and pick my breakfast. I've lived in a place like that. I lived on an orchard. I lived on an organic fruit and vegetable farm, and my job was taking care of the chickens. And every morning at 6, I'd get up and I'd go and feed the chickens. And on the way to the chickens, I'd be passing the orchard and I'd pick an apple off the tree, and there's my breakfast. It was amazing. Some people don't want to do that. That's fine. No problem. We're not, that's really not the exploration that we're looking at here. The exploration here that's necessary, that we need to look at least in broad strokes, if not really personal things for ourselves, is where we're going to be when 3 people come up and go, I don't know what to do. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what to do. Help me, help me, help me. Because there will be people doing this. And when this breaks, they're going to go back to the net. They're going to look at these shows. They're going to go, hey, these guys know what they're talking about. They've been there. I'm going to go talk to them. How are we going to be prepared to give them the tools to be able to make the decisions that they are going to need to make, so that they don't spend 20 years exploring all sorts of different things and never finding where their passions are, where they want to be, what not physically want to be, but where they want to be in either service, production. Because if you're a maker like me, you like to produce. Farmers like to produce. I mean, I'm using the word in its proper sense, in creativity, well, I think you get the message. And this is sort of where I wanted to go with this exploration today, was how can we build the tools? How can we come up with some sort of a guidebook? Not saying this is how you do it. These are the steps you do, because again, that's adding limits. But what suggestions can we make to these people who are, they come up and they go, I've been a shoe salesman all my life. I have no idea. I don't even know the questions to ask. Where can we move?
That's exactly what I was thinking there, John. That those people in particular don't know what they don't know.
That's right.
So how can they ask a question about something that they know nothing about? And that's what I was kind of alluding to before when I said we have to change the manner of our thinking, how we think, what we think.
Yep.
So that's exactly it.
That's going to be the greatest challenge of our group, and not just this group, not just the 15 or so people that are here, the another 40 that listen, but the group, the Unfuckers group, the LMH group, there's hundreds of these little groups all around, and we're all actually, I'm in a couple of them, and I follow a few of these, and they're all asking basically the same questions. And they're going to, they're leading to the same conclusions. They're realizing we are the trainers. We are the people who are going to be walking down the street, and people are going to come to us and go, I know you know how to do this, teach me. And we need to be prepared for this. We need to be ready to give them at least a starting point, a place to work from. And, this ties in with Brianna was talking about with creating community. You may have a vision for your community. Every single person is going to have a slightly different vision for that community. That's beautiful. That's the way it should be. But there are people out there who don't even realize that the community is a learning center. It's a place to share ideas. It's a place to share perspectives. And it really, it doesn't really come down to companionship so much, because we've already got that. You can go find yourself a companion anywhere you want. We've already got it. So that's not really where this is going. This is more, how can we help others advance in their chosen fields, in their chosen vocation, in their chosen passions? Because a lot of people, thousands and thousands of people, like I would say the majority of the people in my town, Brianna, it's probably the same in the city you're living in, they have no idea how to even look for these things.
You were talking about a guidebook. I think at this point, no matter how out of the box, out of, whatever we are, I don't think we're capable right now of writing such a guidebook, but a list of questions to put out to those people, a list of questions for them to ask themselves. That would be a starting point. Now, after, because what I didn't get is how all this is playing out, but forget, but I don't want you to repeat yourself, so I'll catch up on that part.
Well, anybody who's gone through anything, any training per se, they get thrust into the meat and potatoes of it before they are ready every single time. I don't know anybody who said the first time I did this, I felt absolutely confident I was ready. They've all, at the time, sometimes their ego gets in the way, and yeah, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to do that. At the end of the day, when they've gone through it, they went, whoa, I was not prepared. There was things there that I didn't know. So most definitely, we're going to be learning for quite some time. And I don't expect anybody to get it completely, to have all the answers right off the bat. But
no, we can't, and we won't. But we'll learn. We will learn from those people. From
of course,
the way that they'll present themselves, from the questions they will start asking themselves after, let's say, we give them a few seeds, a few starting points, a few okay.
Yep, it's those seeds.
Can do anything.
It's those seeds that I'm looking for here today, and this is why I brought up at the beginning of the show. I think you missed it because you came in a little bit late, but I brought in the idea. let's explore how we got there. So that all of the people in the room today can understand my process, can understand your process, Brianna, can understand Carl's process. And because each process is going to be different. It's going to broaden their perspective of how to get there. And when they run into a situation where it's something new, it's something they haven't actually heard before, they still have a database of information they can draw on and go, well, this person did this person did that, this person did this. Perhaps you might try this. And allow us to grow in experience through each other's experience, how to assist these people in moving ahead once this ridiculous system breaks and we all have the opportunities that we should have in the first place. They are going to be overwhelmed. Somebody brought that up. There's hundreds of most of the people out there are going to be overwhelmed. And they're they're just going to stand on their front yard and they're going to, we call it the fluoride stare. It's just going to be, they're going to be lost, completely lost. And it's going to be up to us to tap them on the shoulder, go, excuse me, you're not lost. You have time to do this. Try this. And give them a tool, give them some starting point, some place where they can begin their exploration, the same kind of explorations that we've already been through, the same kind of explorations, the thinking processes that we've wrapped our minds around. I mean, I think differently now than I did 6 months ago because I have different information.
Absolutely.
Actually, one thing I just wanted to say on that one, there was a quote that actually gets applied to the wrong person, but I believe it was Aristotle who said it's the measure of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is part of what we actually need. We do that already. We are able, us in this group I'm referring to, are able to do that, I believe, very well. We can entertain a thought without accepting, the final result of that thought. We can discuss and come to a conclusion based on our experience. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that isn't the case. So I think part of that process of let's say, helping other people and the world changing, of humanity changing, is that thought process is most certainly going to have to change. They are going to have to be able to entertain thoughts, feelings, ideas, I mean, you name it, without accepting any of them. Because once you do that, then that forms the belief system that unfortunately has been the mainstay of our existence to now, or certainly their existence until now. So if they change that, then they're going to more easily integrate into the new society. Without belief systems.
We're still stuck. We're still stuck in that, Carl. We're still wrapped around belief systems, and I think to some extent, certainly. I think we're in a little better position because we recognize that,
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Whereas a lot of people simply don't recognize that it's simply their belief that's getting in the way.
I mean, we still have that problem that we don't know what we don't know. So, we're basing on what we've discovered and learned so far, and then we're able to establish that exactly as you just mentioned. They are not. They are completely blinkered in their views and beliefs, and have probably limited experience in education in many things. We've spent years and years going over.
Yep.
The reasons why we've done it and they haven't, I don't know, but that's another discussion.
Well, I mean, I did mine because it dropped in my lap. I've always liked making things. I've always been a mad scientist, inventor ever since I was a little kid. So it just sort of flowed into my existence at that time. And I think I'm very fortunate for that. Clive brought up, he says, I can tell you a little story about how I accomplished my first passion. Accomplishing it is, that's not our discussion here, Clive. I would like to hear how you discovered it. That's because that's going to give us the tools to allow the people that we're going to be helping a way that we can sort of nudge them in the right direction. I mean, how they accomplish what they want to do is totally up to them. That's their thing. But finding it, that's the first thing they have to do, is find it. That's where most people are having issues. So if you want to come out, you're welcome to. I'd love to hear from you. I haven't heard from you in, what, 3 weeks? You've been sort of AWOL for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's just laughing. Go ahead, Brandon.
Check.
There we go.
Yep, no, sounds good.
Okay. Right, well, you've put me on a bit of a spot here because
That's
this
the whole
happened.
that's the whole point. That's the whole point, Clive. We need to go through the thought process of how we found it.
Right. Well, this happened at school when I was about 10, 11, maybe. And I had a friend who was very interested in electronics. And he being a bit of a nerd, didn't have many friends, so I befriended him. And I used to go down to his house, and we used to dabble with radio and components and building stuff. And that is how my passion first came into being. But later on in life, I decided that I'd follow this passion, and I joined the Royal Corps of Signals. And that set me on the way to getting an amateur radio license. But there, you don't want to know about that. But that's what led me. That's what led me down that track. It was just a friend who was interested in electronics. I had no clue. I went to his place. We dabbled around in it, and then I got the enthusiasm for it. And that's how it started for me.
Yeah, and with, you know, in from my existence or my experience, I got into playing music when I was quite young, and learned how to play the clarinet. And everybody that was around me basically told me, "Well, you play the clarinet. That's you play the clarinet." And I thought, well, no, I don't want those limits. And I was at a friend's house, and he put on a Jethro Tull album, which I'd never heard before, and it was a song called Bourrie, which is a rather beautiful flute piece. It was one of my favorite pieces of music still today. And while I was listening to that, I realized the music is the difficult part. The instruments are easy. Once you learn the music, all you need to do is pick up the instrument, make some noise, you will find the music. And now, because of that, it doesn't matter what instrument I pick up, I will find the music in it. So the exploration of seeking these things, this is the I think the critical or the crux of the discussion here today is seeking the exploration. Right now, the exploration is very, very difficult. If it works out well, it's because it dropped in your lap. It's not because you went out and built it. Not all the time, certainly, but for the majority of people. What's coming up is the ability to go and explore. And I mean, Brianna touched on this a little bit about wanting to travel around. And she may be traveling and driving through an area, and she'll see somebody doing something in their yard, and she'll go, well, that's really interesting. And she'll stop and she'll go and talk to them and realize, this is what I want. I want to learn how to do that. And it becomes a passion. So allowing that exploration, allowing the ability to just be in every situation so that you're open to it. And we kind of touched on this with the quote from Aristotle. you have to go and look. You have to believe you can, first of all, know it exists, at least in a very slight way, know it exists. And I mean, Bashar, a lot of people, they don't like channel messages, but regardless of the source, the information that comes out with the Bashar messages is amazing information. And one of the things he brings up is that if you can think of it, it exists. Because if it didn't exist, you wouldn't even conceive of it. It wouldn't be there. And as soon as you conceive of it, you now created it. It now exists. So getting over the limits. One of the things that's going to be difficult for us to teach, for us to instill in others, is the idea of there are no limits. What do you want to explore? Where can you go and look for this? You know. Oh man, I just lost my thought. Yeah, we got to move these to the afternoon so I can get sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's a lot of thought, a lot of thinking for folks over the week. We got a little less than an hour to go. So let's, unless anybody wants to come out and bring up some more on this, I mean, we can continue to discuss this, certainly. I don't see anybody unmuting. So let's move on. Mark, are you able to come out? And I know you've had some advances in your process, the stuff that we discussed or you talked about last week. You did mention a couple of things to me in private. Do you want to come out and talk about that today? Want to totally shift the topic.
Yeah, that's true. Just going on the subject on what we're all talking about now and listening to, is that I have found that when you go out and look for something, try it, then you'll fit, you will fit whatever feels best for you, and then you can start working on that. Because in my life, I mean, it's been a roller coaster. It really has. And going from, being a squatty brat in Singapore, born in Singapore, father coming back to England and so forth, and going to boarding school and getting in trouble, so to speak. I all passion with wood, and I think that's where I get it from my father, because he was a carpenter by trade. He was a master carpenter by trade. But then I kind of went away from it all, and I joined up and joined the paras, and I ended up in special. I'm not going to even say what, but Clive will probably know. Carl, you'll probably know anyway. And I've been around the world. I've seen it. Every place where I've been to, I always made time to find out what the locals did, because you can't go into somebody's land, country, or anything like that thinking, well, it's totally wrong, because you have to learn from others. And this is where the learning curve comes into it, because if you don't learn off others and you're too full of it, you're not going to get nowhere. So this is why, I personally think that it's later on in life that you kind of accidentally trip into something that, or you never knew it was. Now, if I didn't do my work in the past that I did, I don't think I would be doing this work that I'm doing now. And it doesn't need any money. It just needs a bit of a kind heart and great words and a bond, brotherhood, basically. And I help people with PTSD. and that's military PTSD. PTSD is a huge word, and the different types of trauma and so forth. And that's how I got into this, and through my own experiences and how the system failed me. And I thought, well, no, I found something different that works. And I have loads of people that I talk to on the phone. I go, it's just that being there. And if I can afford it, I will dig it out my own pocket. So I set up a charity, which is called Operation Recovery. And it's recovering lost souls, in a sense, and putting people's lives back together, or helping. You know, you can only do 50%. The other 50% is got to be done by them. You know, you can walk through the door. But as everybody knows, quite a lot of people, that there's a big problem going off, and I've been fighting this for 3 years, and I've just turned around to Clive now. And him being an ex-Signal, where this rugby radio station is, it used to be the Big Ear, and it was owned by the MOD, and that's where the farm sits. Now, it's like I said, I'm no farmer. I've no interest in being a farmer. I'm only interested in helping others through my own past experience and my knowledge. So we needed the acreage, because with people with PTSD, they have to have space. And this was a perfect opportunity. You know, you just couldn't throw it away. So, and that's how I ended up. And ever since that day, well, as you know, I've been fighting quite a lot of people, corporate companies. And what they want to do is, just to brief everybody, is that they want to develop on this 70 that I'm in possession of. Well, I'm sorry, I don't give monkeys who some legal corporation is. I mean, they're nothing to me. It's just a bit of paper. And when I got onto the show, you're damn right it's working. And Clive, it was John, you said earlier on, you know, there's only, what, 15 people in here. Well, that's 15 more people than last week. That's, you know, and so forth. It only can get better. And going back to what Clive said as well, it's what you feel is right. It's not what you can do, or it's, you'll come across things in life that you just feels right. And Brian and he say, you know, I have sitting around a fire and so forth, and all that, but all that thing is great. But what I find out that what happens is that later on in life, that you will find something that you'll grasp, and you won't let go of it, and you'll fight tooth and nail with words, not anger, because anger doesn't get you anywhere, as I find. And if you use the correct language to throw back at these type of people, oh, they come unstuck. They come stuck, sorry. And they just don't know what to do with you, because you're actually using their legalese against. So at the moment, very interesting, because I did speak to John the other day. Something was rattling in my brain that I just couldn't grasp. And we sent that letter off, John. Well, of course, you read it. Mm-hmm. And by Christ, did we get a response from them. And I think it was, I did say to Lisa, when she read it out, ladies and gents, I mean, this is no word of a lie. We are fighting the government, the UK government, huge insurance companies, and huge development companies. And the funny thing is, I've got them for, and they know it. But the thing is, I think it's got to the stage now where they don't even think of, you know, what's gone off throughout the 3 years. It's about pride. It's about them don't want to cut the nose off to spite the, and because it's, you know, we're huge corporate companies and so forth, fighting me and my family for God's sake. You know, we're all made equal. Nobody's, you know, what's the word, dominating over anybody else. So, yeah, we got a reply, and the reply was only a short one saying, look, we're going to come down next week and have a chat. Well, little did I find out, it's not them, it's not just a couple of people coming down to have a little chat. It's the whole lot of them, in a sense. This is government, the development companies, and top brass of this certain insurance company. So whether we get, I don't know, a shut your mouth sketch or whatever, but I think it's gone a bit too far now. And I think this has to be in the public eye, because what these corporate companies are doing and deceiving people and so forth. You know, many moons ago, because they've had a go at my family, damaged my family, physically and mentally. It was their responsibility, but it's not a personal thing. You can't have it personal. It's doing the right thing. So when it comes to teaching people and so forth, your knowledge can only be because you've been there, seen it, done it, trod it, and so forth. But yeah, it's either Tuesday or Wednesday. And I don't really want to entertain them, John, to tell you the truth, because of how far these people have. I mean, they've gone to the stage of, you know, getting at judges and so forth. We've gone through what? 1, 2, 3, 5 judges. And the next judge, we're off to go and arrest.
Yep. Clive brought up a perfect point here. Record it. Record the meeting. And make sure they know it's being recorded.
Well, Clive, it's a good funny thing, that is, because in my line of work, what I mean, and then you'll know which regiment I was with. Now, when we first came to the farm, cameras on it, the whole lot, and it clearly, this farm is recorded. And when you come up here, you can see the cameras. Now, these corporate companies didn't realise, and they actually put in their sworn statements to the court, saying, "Oh, we've never been to the to Mark's farm." I've got them on CCTV talking to me and Lisa, and also I've recorded every single meeting that we've ever had. I got them transcribed by a solicitor. They went through and they signed them off, and all the judge. And, you know, the judge in the first part of the hearing turned round and said, well, I think we've got some transcripts to hear, to read and listen to recordings. They all jumped up and said, oh, we haven't set up for that and all this lot. And I said, well, I object to that, because it's this very information that's dropped these big companies in it. And they've broke the law, and they're not above the law. So, yeah, I've got every... Clive, absolutely spot on there.
Yeah, this meeting that's coming up could be the end of all of this, right? Because you've mentioned before, I think you mentioned it on the show and as well as in private discussion, that you're willing to settle. You're willing to just say, okay, fine, pay us out, we'll leave, and you know, give them the out. Because one of the things with any of these processes that we've talked about in the past, you can't pin them into a corner. You can't. You have to give them an out. You have to give them a way to go, okay, I don't want to play anymore, we'll settle, and bring this up. You'll have the government folks there and just say, look, we've already offered to settle. We've offered to deal with this. This is a $6 billion project, and we're asking for 1.7 million. What the hell? Settle. and it's done with. Otherwise, you guys are going down. You have no leg to stand on. And at this point, because of what I've heard and what you've disclosed to me, their options are really limited. They can either settle or they can off you. That's about where they're at right now. And
yeah, that's very true. I mean, on this letter that we sent to the judge's boss, so to speak, as you said, and straight away we got the address and name, and we wrote this letter which you've read. And I did say to Lisa, that's not strong enough, Lisa. We really want to go a bit more. And our Lisa is quite very politically correct in a sense. And I would have loved to be in a fly on a wall when she opened that letter.
Yep, me too.
But all I say to people out there is, if any problem comes along, you are very able to tackle it. I mean, we did a lot of research before I even came onto the show, before I met John and everybody else, Carl on the show, and they've done 17 years of knowledge and so forth. I did quite a lot of research, and when we all connected, it kind of flooded my whole brain, and I just fired everything at them, and I fired it back constructively. And these corporations don't whatsoever. The people who own this world are us. We belong to it, and we should look after it well, as best we can. And that's all I see now, is what Carl said earlier on. Give out, love. And once you grasp that word and knows what it means, things start to just open up for exactly what's happened to me and Lisa. We've let go. The stress is gone. And we've put the ball in their court. So it's entirely up to them now what they want to do. I mean, they could come round and say, well, at the end of the day, I've invoked all the documentation to be released to the public interest, to the media. And this one will not go down very well for government and these corporations for what they're doing. It's fraud, and that's that. And people will just scream out murder. So, yeah, that's where we are at the moment.
Well, this is definitely a development. Like I said last week, I'm really interested in seeing how this plays out. I mean, this is a precedent-setting matter, and if you will prevail, I'm quite certain of that, because these people, they like I said, they either have to settle or they have to make you go away, and I doubt they'll do that because you're public now. If you go away, there's going to be lots of questions, so that's even off the table. Yeah. Record the meeting. Let us know what happened. And like Clive said, Carl said, ask for a settlement meeting, or don't even bother being here. If you're not coming to settle this matter today, don't bother showing up. And I mean, yeah, I kind of 80% support that, but I also support the fact that let's just meet and settle this. Let's solve the problem. Whether it gets solved at that meeting or not is, in my mind, not really relevant as long as it moves forward. And go ahead.
Sorry, good point there. Because what turned my mind when it came back, I mean, this guy had rung me up, called me on the cell phone, and I knew do I really want to talk to this person? Because it's just a waste of my time at the moment, because it was these corporations that you do this and you do that and we can do this. Well, I'm sorry, for God's sake. Well, our special forces, for God's sake, and I don't give up on nothing. If I'm wrong, I can put my hands up, and agree with my own guilt. No, sorry, not agree, admit my own guilt. But these corporations, they hide behind these satellite corporations, and then you've got your controlling corporation. The controlling corporation itself, I'll tell you who it is, sod it. It's Aviva PLC. And they're an insurance company, and a very big one. So they actually, going back to Clive as well, you've got to check this, Clive. This bloke stood in my dining room and he says to us, well, what we want is, we want the land back and so forth, and the house, blah, 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 blah. Oh, sorry, profusely apologising to us of their, what's the word? Their wrongdoings. And they actually wrote it in an email, and they was going to pay us 40,000. Well, the thing is, they owed me over, I don't know, 250, coming up to 280 pounds of our own money being put into the place, which it was their responsibility. So I'm not going to agree to it. But the thing is, he admitted the law at all, liability, civil breach of contract and so forth, and in the last paragraph, to drop all claims against all these governments and that lot. And the last paragraph, turning around to us and saying, if you agree to this, we'll get our solicitors to write a separate document over to reflect this. Well, I'm not going to do that whatsoever. So this guy's sitting in my dining room, and he's going, well, perfume. And I've sent it to him. He nearly dropped dead on the phone when he came back to me on that. But he says, profusely apologizing, turning around to us, like Jekyll and Hyde, saying, well, I'm going to flex my corporate muscle now, but we want our land back and we want you out. Well, I'm sorry, I'm in possession of the land. I said to this other bloke here, so you got your car keys? He says, yeah. I said, get this son of a bitch in the car and piss off. So when he called the other day, I actually did say to him, if you're going to come up, you better come up with a good excuse, right? Or a good deal. Because I don't want to waste my breath. Or I'll tell you what, sit the driveway and you won't get up, right? So please come to us constructive, because we've had 3 years of sheer heartache and what these companies have put my family through. I'm not going to put up with it no more. Now I know what I know, and now I know what legalese actually means, and the tricks and the trades of the courts and how they trick you into their jurisdiction and so forth. You're damn right I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet, and we're ready for them.
Yeah, if you can get half a dozen neighbors, get some witnesses, get some disinterested third parties in the house while the meeting's going on, that will help as well. And
well, we said that if it goes to court, the second part of the hearing is on the 13th of September, and we've already warned them off that we're bringing our live witnesses. Because remember when I said they put this behind closed doors?
Yep. Closed
door justice, which is totally... Yeah, we've got 28 people going.
Perfect.
Love it.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, at the meeting, just say, look, guys, obviously you want this to go away. You don't have standing to even talk to us anymore, so let's just settle this matter. The original was whatever 1.7 million. You've caused us significant loss and stress and damage after that. Under tort law, it's now triple damages. We don't have to go that high. We'll settle for 2.5. Give them an out. If you're willing to walk away. If you're willing to walk away, get compensated for your efforts, get compensated for your losses, and walk away, then do so. And make that the focus of it.
Thing is, I've got to... as we were saying about lads with Operation Free and PTSD, I've kind of fallen in love with this place. Perfect. Now, I actually did say to him that, you know, for what you've done and so forth, I'm going to take the land off you, regardless, right, for what you've done, because it's how they've done it, because what they've insured, the whole fraud scene is massive. It's in its billions now. It really is. And it's how the government's getting their money back, pension money and all this lot. Same companies which are doing it. But on the insurance document that kind of somebody dropped on our desktop, it does say that Normandy Farm is insured for £150,000. Well, how can 1,700 acres and a huge farm, which is worth, well, I don't know, millions, it is, be insured for 150,000? So I said, you owe us 250, 280 pounds. I said, I'll take the farm off you. And just remember, it was Normandy Farm. You put down on the record, not Normandy House. So I'll have the acreage as well. So all the lads, in fact, I'll stick a DZ on it and get the lads to jump on it. But no, I have to agree with you that it is time to close a chapter here and give them a way out, which we've tried to give them a way out many times before. Yep. But, you know, corporate companies just think they're, you know, better than us.
Yeah, you have to continue to do so. I mean, you don't have to. You can just be a dick and say, screw it, we want this, and that's all there is to it. But that's not really productive. That's not going to solve the problem. If you continue to offer them the way out, the longer they extend it, the more difficult it's going to be for them to get out. And that's only reasonable. I mean, at the beginning, you say, fine, pay us out. It's like £300,000. That's what we're into this place for. Pay us out and we'll leave. And they drag it out for 3 years, cost you another £500,000, then certainly you're going to add that to it. And the longer it goes, the more it's going to be. So you make it worth their while to settle early. And once we set this precedent and the corporations get it, they won't be playing this game anymore, and they'll stop their stupidity.
Yeah, I was about to make a suggestion that each time they do this, pull this bullshit, you offer them a settlement figure, but every week that it goes on, add another 200 grand or whatever figure you want, just so that it's obvious to them that, look, every time you delay this, the settlement goes up.
I do that with people that want to haggle. Well, how much do you want for it? I want $10. Well, I'll give you $8. Okay, how about 12?
Yeah.
Well, do you know, funny thing you should say that, because they actually turn around to first of all, he says, we're not going to put anything in writing now. I threw him out the door. As simple as that. Then he went through a third party, another guide, and this other certain guy came back to us and said, look, Mike, how much do you want to settle up? And we gave him a figure, end of story. And that's what the figure of what you know is, John, right? So, because if we go for the whole project, in which we're entitled to, and the law clearly states that we can sue them for the law at all, and it's 3 times as much, and the project is worth 6.8 billion, well, obviously I'm not going to go for that. But if it push comes to shove, I'll push for it. But that'd be a lot of money to help people with, wouldn't it?
Well, you could use that as leverage, and say this is what we can do. Now, don't push us into the position where we're going to do that to you. Because right now you're in a position to own these companies. Basically, you've got enough information, you could shut them down and use it. That's leverage. but give them a way out. Say, look, you know, we're entitled to $18 billion because of the tort and your stupidity. We don't want that. We don't want to have to do that. Don't push us to that point. Let's settle today. This is what we want. And, you know, I would make it a sum that is sufficient that you can go to, say, Dover or you know, Lancashire somewhere, buy another piece of land, make it your own place, and rebuild your system from there. You know, wherever, if you want a beautiful piece of land in the trees, I don't even know if India or England has trees anymore. They used to have lots of them. But hell, I don't even know if they have bare land anymore.
Well, that's just it, John. I mean, going back to what was said earlier on in the program, travel, see what, you know, what it's got to offer, you know, and see where you feel that you want to settle down. And I have thought about it, and every time I've been there, it's where my heart wants to be, and it is Canada, British Columbia. Okay. I mean, I just cannot. It's the vastness, you know. Over here in England, there's a few hills. Ben Nevis, wow, you know, that's nothing compared to, you know. I've sat on the lake in a little canoe, and I've got these huge mountains around me. That's where I feel right.
Okay.
And I said, one day I'm going to be here. And if I have to take Operation Recovery over there as the space, so be it.
There's lots of places over here. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. And England, you can drive across England in what, 6 to 8 hours? I'm 8 hours from Vancouver, and I still have another 6 hours of British Columbia to my east. You know, we got so much space over here.
Yeah, and, well, I remember spending my 25th birthday on a Greyhound bus going to Vancouver. That was a good one. I'll never forget it. It was my first tour in Wainwright.
Yeah, Wainwright. Now there's a desolate piece of property.
Oh yeah, that's why they put the guns big firing range. But you know, beside that, a friend of mine, which I have photographs to prove it and so forth, we scaled Rockies over a certain amount of time and going from east to west, and we ended up in Vancouver. But then 2 months of crossing the Rockies, just me and this lad, and living off, it was, you just couldn't get any better in my opinion. I mean, I've got goosebumps now, and that's where I want to be. So this could be a good ticket.
Yeah, I mean, you know, from my own perspective, there's nothing like the mountains up around Jasper. Mount McKinley is one of the most impressive sights you'll ever see if anybody ever gets to have a look at it. Down south where I'm at, it's not really mountains. I mean, a lot of folks from Nova Scotia would think they're huge, but there's no real exposed jagged rocks that go for 20,000 feet in the air, and it's just, you know, more like really steep hills, and lots of them down around where I live right now. And it's not quite my cup of tea, but it's sufficient for this time. And it's doing what I need it to do. If I get in where I want to go, there's no way I'm going to even have internet. So, because you'll never see a satellite. You're just the mountains are too high.
I tell you what, just on the last note here, you talk about freedom. And I think the best show that I'm always glued to is called The Last Alaskans. Mm-hmm. And that's living. To me, this is build your own cabin and work and live off the land, and because you've got nobody around you. Of course, you've got the odd airplane coming in to take you in and out and so forth, because you can't. There's no highways there. But you know, the American government is putting a stop to the permits in this part of Alaska now. And I'm thinking, well, why? You've got all this free space, you know, vastness and so forth. Well, why can't people just live where they want to live, to tell you the truth?
Yeah, I really enjoy those shows. I've watched a couple of them. Actually, I've all caught up with pretty much all of them, and it's a good starting point to get your mind wrapped around the idea of, you know, what does it actually mean to live free? And yes, certainly that example, it's a difficult example because you don't have the community, you don't have, like, not as much as people are used to. You don't have the ability to just go get what you need when you need it. You have to wheel and deal and go without, sit on the ground sometimes. But it starts the thinking about, you know, what does it actually mean to be able to live free?
Do you know?
Go ahead.
Funny you should say that. Listening to, my mind's just gone back to part of the show earlier on. It said, when you're a kid and so forth, you know, what did you adapt to? And Clive come out with a good one. You know, they started playing with electronics and so forth and all this lot. Then he had a gap with it, and all of a sudden, later on in life, it came handy to him because he used it. Mine, looking at this and about Canada and that lot, then you're talking about the programs and that lot. It's just fallen on my lap right now. I used to watch Grizzly Adams. I said, one day I'm going to be there.
Me too.
When I was a kid.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, and there you go. Sorry.
Well, I spent from about, I guess, 10 till 15, maybe even later, I spent the majority of my time figuring out how to do what I needed to do with a stick and a rock and a knife, and with the materials that were around me. I didn't need high tech. I didn't need, you know, I could generate energy. I could go scrounge up some old dead cars and get the copper that I needed for making energy and build a water wheel. You know, I designed that really early. And that was one of my big passions when I was younger was, you know, how can I just go and homestead, just bugger off into the bush and exist? And it never turned out. I never, you know, I did get a chance to go into the bush and I had a little cabin and it lasted about 1.5 years. And then I had to get out because the way the system runs is it doesn't really allow it, especially in British Columbia. You can't really do that. You can sort of do it, but not really.
Yeah.
In Alaska, you can still pretty much still do that. Again, they are encroaching on it, and they're trying to take that away. But I'm sure that if anybody researched the details behind that, they'd find the lawful way to tell these people just to bugger off. Because it's got to be there. It has to be there. Because if it isn't there, we are slaves. And right now, we're not slaves. We're only taught that to think that we're slaves. And you're finding this out with your own research that the living flesh is higher than the corporation. And, you know, it has a higher standing. It has a higher purpose than the corporation. The corporations were created by man. They're not the controllers of man. So it's again, back to what we were discussing earlier, it comes down to a belief system. If you believe you're a slave, you're a slave. If you believe there's a way out, you will find the way out. You just got to go look for it.
It's there.
Yes,
it's
it
there.
is.
Believe me, it is there. I mean, you talk about the corporations there, and a human being of flesh and period, which we do know that, and it's all man-made. Now, I know that for a fact because I've actually used it, and I got back from their high class. What do they charge? In fact, they charge £285 an evening. Wow. I'm in the wrong job. I threw that one at them. But when I said to him, I wrote a letter, and it said in this letter, we require the human being of flesh and blood who are Mills and Reeves LLP, because they signed a documentation where Mills and Reeves LLP, all in uppercase, and they signed it Mills LLP, so it must be real human being of flesh and blood. So we asked for that information. We asked all the real human being of flesh and blood of Sue GP LLP and all these other corporates. So I do know, do you know what they sent me? They sent me Companies House where you go the documentation. I said, well, you can throw all the documents, just paper. It's fictitious. It doesn't exist. It can't shake hands. It can't nod head. It can't speak for itself. So if I throw this piece of paper on the table there and say, right, hello, will it say hello back to me? No. So it's a fictitious entity. So we require the real flesh and blood of real human beings, of flesh and blood of these corporate entities. Well, they can't do that because contract law clearly states that human being of flesh and blood has to take a human being of flesh and blood to court. It has to be that way. It can be a corporate entity taking another entity and having your directors behind it. That can be allowed, but a corporate entity that doesn't exist cannot take a human being of flesh and blood to court. And we've told the judge this, and he's shut his mouth.
Yep, because it's a fundamental truth in law, and the basis of that is if the plaintiff is fictional, you cannot face your accuser. And that is the basis of this. Anybody that's questioning this, that doesn't think that's real, that is the core of this. If the people who are charging you are hiding behind a corporation and they are not taking responsibility for the charges, they can charge you with anything and over and over again, and you have no recourse. And that is wrong, fundamentally and foundationally wrong. You must be able to face your accuser. And, you know, in truth, the way we should be doing this sort of stuff is if somebody has a problem with you, they come to you and you solve the problem. No courts involved. If you simply cannot come to a settlement, then you get a court involved and you have an arbitrator decide which is what's fair for both parties. That's how it's supposed to work. And if we can get back to that, it works really, really well, provided ego gets out of the picture and the judges are actually honest people, which is, I don't know if that's ever going to happen or not. But, you know, all of the stuff that we talk about on these shows, we do have a foundational basis for the thinking, and it's pretty much bulletproof if you really look at it. So, you know, don't assume that what we're telling you is absolutely correct, because, you know, we make mistakes too, and we can be wrong. But the foundational data, the foundational information behind all of this stuff is there, and it's there for anyone to find. All you have to do is go look.
See, it's quite funny. Can I just this week alone, I have even cemented all this information. Because what I did, you're kind of like this one, Carl, you'll like this one as well, is that I phoned these corporate, these solicitors, Mills and Reeves LLP. But what I did is to find out, because I was receiving emails which says it came from legal services. You know, as soon as I read this, and one was a reply straight away because we fired it. And it was said, well, if you do this, well, oh, by the way, they said, we'll put you on notice. Notice. Well, I knew what that meant. So it's another solicitor jargon stuff. It doesn't mean anything. But what I did is I phoned all their satellite companies up. One in London, one in Manchester, one in Leeds, Norwich, and so forth. They're a pretty huge company, this. And I was acting as a woman. Sorry, I mean, no disrespect or anything. I'm not. and I got the information that I wanted. And I said, do you have a legal service? I said, pardon? I said, could you put me through to legal service? What legal service? We are legal. And this is to every satellite company. I said, oh, thanks very much. So I knew then what was going on. They actually opened up another email just to make them bigger. And I wasn't having it. Then I turned around to one of them. I got this guy and I duped him right into the fish net. And I said, right, for argument's sake, I said, I can't tell you the story, but if a legal entity cannot take a human being, and this guy says, well, that's correct. I said, so why would a solicitor say that their client, who is a legal entity, is taking a human being of flesh and blood to court? They can't do that. I said, okay, for another argument's sake, I said, you put your P in all uppercase, which is a corporate entity. He says yes. And I said, then you go and sign it, you, as Mills and Reeves LLP. I said, would that be legally binding? He says, well, no, because it has to be a human being. I said, good. So do you want to go and tell your buddy, Julian Steed, down in the Norwich branch, what you just said to me? Because I've just recorded this. So I know how to play their little game. So all this week, I've been on cloud 9. Knowingly, I threw it right back in their laps. And this woman started having an argument with me. And she said, look, I said, look, I'm not here to argue with you. I mean, I've got an email here saying this is from legal services. And she said, well, we haven't got a legal. Back to Julian Steed, who's, I mean, this guy's a muppet. How he became a solicitor, I just don't know. Common sense don't prevail with these people. And I sent him a letter and I says, well, how can you have a legal services with an illegal company? So you've messed up. So you've passed it on to your legal service. So what if legal services messes? Have they got a legal services to back them up? It's brilliant once you get into when the fear dissipates from having somebody trying to rule your life and, you know, over the past 3 years and making your family suffer. And you're fighting against, you know, things that you can't even touch. It makes it quite hard. But once you understand, as John says, everybody, that, you know, this is a guide. And it is a guide. And it's up to everybody else to go out there and check it. And yes, we all mess up. We all make mistakes and stuff, because we're all not perfect, and especially a person like me. Not a person, a man like me, should I say, because a person's a corporate entity. So if you go out there digging, it just comes to you, and you, right, I'm going to use this. And once you're in the motion of throwing it back at them, by Christ, does it make your life a lot happier. And that's true. So use this legally. There's the big one in my question is find out what their language is. You can't learn all of it by all means, but if you understand the basics of their legalese, like registration and so forth, you know, things like this, and you get a good understanding of what it is, then you start tripping them up, because I guarantee they don't know what it is as well. Because I would say a lot of solicitors and barristers out there, lawyers over in America and attorneys, they don't know what is actually really going on. So if you come out with all these words, they have to go and look up in a book. Because I've got a transcript of a High Court judge over here in England, which happened last year, over the same company that we're for. Basically, yeah. But the High Court judge says in his transcript, which I've threw off to the judge and everybody else. I said, well, read that and explain this from a High Court judge. And that High Court judge says, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Such and Such, but how can we put the blame on, you know, any of these corporate entities? Because they don't really exist, do they? These are the words that he's used. He said, so you really can't put the blame on a certain person. So you're fighting against nothing. So I do sympathise for you, but and all this stuff, well, there you go. He's just admitted everything, hasn't he?
Pretty much.
That, and it's there in Dutch. So I sent that transcript over to.
Did we lose Mark there?
So yeah.
Well, Mark, it's awesome stories. I love hearing your discuss this. This is great stuff. And again, like I said earlier, this is going to wind up being a precedent for everybody to follow. And kudos to you. You're doing amazing work.
Thanks, John.
I just wanted to follow up as well on that because you know, Mark mentioned that he's gotten to the stage now where he's gotten some help, some direction from us, and he's taken it on board. In addition to the 3 years that he's already been battling with this, the information that he was able to glean from listening to us has helped remove a little bit of the fear, given him a direction, and he's now enjoying it, which is exactly what we've said in the past. You'll get to a point where this happens, you lose the fear, you understand what it is that's going on, and you can play with it and still end up winning, but enjoy doing it at the same time. And it's not meant in a nasty way. It's simply that you are finding your power. You're being responsible for yourself. You're being responsible for your family. You have the knowledge to now play in their sandbox, and you can win because you have that knowledge that previously you never had. And it does become fun, and it really, really feels good when you can get to win.
It's exactly the same principle today's show. If you feel once you've, in fact, let's go back to one of the other shows, Carl, which you quite rightly put right with me, that knowledge, what was that knowledge and put into
knowledge with action is power.
That's the word. That's it. And that is absolutely spot on, because the truth is there. And what you've got, and the thing is, you talk about the fear factor. The fear factor for, I mean, I'd rather be out in theatre with bullets and so forth in my past. I know what's going off there, right? But, you know, when you're fighting with the pen and you're not used to this type of thing, you know, it's screwed you up, sleepless, you know, tablets and God knows what. But once it starts to open up and the knowledge comes in and you click onto it, believe you me, my stomach, I laugh at everything they send us because I throw it back at them and I give them a choice, right? And they know the choice. You either settle up or go to court, end of story. Or this is closed door justice, and I've already invoked, I'm going to have the press there. I've already invited them. They're going to be there. So for his little cabin, the judge's cabin, as he being a ship, is going to be rather full.
Well, I want people to just go back and listen to, what was it now, 3 or 4 weeks ago that you first came on, Mark? And I want to listen to the difference in how you were sounding on that particular show, and I want them to come back to this one, and I want them to listen to the way you are, because I remember the difference. I can hear the difference. I can tell the difference, and it's massive. It's massive for you, and I'm so happy for you. I really am.
Oh, the thing is, you know, when you turn around and talk about the show earlier on today as well, you said you go for another passion. Yeah, my passion is to help ex-soldiers with PTSD and so forth, you know, trauma. anybody what suffers it, because, you know, through my own past experience. But this is, you know, through the 3 years I've been battling this, now I've opened up to this, I'm not off it. I mean, I'll come off this show and I've got a list of things to do, and I'll be up till 3 o'clock in the morning getting all this information. You want to see the paperwork that I've got, and I've got a lot of this stuff is Americanized, but it stems from British law, English law, end of story.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's where it comes from. And once you get all that, you're laughing, people. Honestly, you can take on anybody. All you have to have is the balls to do it, to stand up in front of somebody who you think's going to start shouting at you, and have the balls to turn around and say, "Excuse me, but who the hell are you to talk to me like the way that you do? You've got no jurisdiction over us." End of story. And it works.
It works if you have the right information and you use it in the right way. You know, there's lots of people that have tried that and they've got smacked down because they made a simple little error. And it's getting easier. Certainly, it's getting easier. The basis of all of this information is actually really, really simple. It's very straightforward, common sense stuff. Like the idea that a fictional plaintiff is fraud. If the plaintiff doesn't exist, you can't face your accuser. Therefore, your accuser doesn't exist. There is no one accusing you. There's no matter. Simple stuff, and it doesn't have to be complicated. You can make it complicated if you want, but you can also make it incredibly simple and still have the same results. So anyway, we're running a little long today, folks. Thanks for sticking with us, and I hope we've given everybody some food for thought. I'm going to reiterate, we do want people to come out and have conversations, because that's what drives this show. And it's the direction we take is going to be dictated by you guys. I mean, Carl and I we're starting to run out of direction because we don't know where you folks want to go. We don't know your questions. We don't know what you're concerned with. So we need the questions. We need your input. Make this even better. And as training the trainers, you guys are going to be the trainers. You're going to be the people who are going to be teaching this to others very shortly. And we all have to be prepared for this, because it's coming, folks, and there's no way around it. The next thing with the OPPT stuff with Heather and Randy, I believe is scheduled for the 18th of October. And that is actually when, apparently, from what I understand from the information that I've received, that is when Heather is actually going to be able to defend the OPP documents. And since they are bulletproof, they are unquestionable, I don't really see that being too much of a difficult thing to do. So if all goes well, we're going to be in the position of having to start training people by the end of October. So start thinking, start going through your head, get this stuff clear in your head so that when people come and ask you the questions, you'll be able to direct them. We're going to need it. So on that note, folks, everybody's got homework to do. Lots of stuff to think about. And thank you very much. Thanks, Brianna and Mark and Carl and Clive and everybody else that came in. Been here for the show, putting stuff in the chat. Great stuff. Great discussion. Thanks, Carl. I know you're out of the house at the moment, and it's a bit of a pain to get this stuff set up. And thank you to your hosts, wherever they happen to be, for giving you the freedom to be able to take up these 2 hours.
Yes, yeah, that's been very helpful. I've got one more weekend away, so I'll be traveling back next Sunday, but it'll be Sunday evening. So yeah, thanks again, John. I always appreciate your producing and co-hosting. I love it when we get lots of people in and they get involved, and we want to get more and more people caught up, because these shows really matter. You guys really matter, because it's a Sentio Mentium, a meeting of the minds.
That's right. This isn't the Carl and John show. This is a meeting of the minds, and we need minds to meet with.
Mm-hmm. So, yep. Thank you, everybody, and being well. We'll be with you next Sunday. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.